The Xenozoological Research Station on Outpost Theta had a problem. 6 juvenile Racthian storm predators, apex hunters capable of taking down armored prey 3 times their size, refused to sleep properly. For 3 weeks, the cubs had been restless, pacing their reinforced habitat, whimpering in distress despite optimal environmental conditions. Lead researcher Velshera reviewed the biometric data for the 100th time. Heart rates elevated, stress hormones through the ceiling, sleep cycles fragmented into useless 10-minute intervals. The cubs were exhausting themselves, and nobody knew why. Temperature optimal, nutrition perfect, enrichment activities exceed requirements, Velshera muttered, her chitinous fingers clicking against the datapad. What are we missing? Maybe try the human, suggested her assistant, PRYX. Velshera's antennae twitched in dismissal. The maintenance worker? What could he possibly? He keeps asking about them. Says they remind him of something from Earth. Against her better judgment, Velshera authorized it. The human, named David Chun, entered the observation room wearing his standard-issue jumpsuit, looking utterly unremarkable. They're beautiful, he said softly, watching the cubs through the transparent barrier. One of them, the smallest, pressed against the wall and made a sound between a growl and a whine. They're stressed, Velshera corrected. We can't determine why. David studied them for a long moment. Can I go in? Absolutely not. They're predators. Lethal, even as juveniles. They're babies, David interrupted gently. And they're scared. Something in his tone made Velshera pause. Scared? Of what? They're apex predators. Exactly. David pointed at the habitat. You've given them everything except what they actually need. Where are their parents? Dead. Poaching incident. Before Velshera could stop him, he'd entered the airlock override code, somehow, and stepped into the habitat. The monitoring room erupted in alarm. Security feeds showed David walking calmly towards 6 of the most dangerous juveniles in the sector. The cubs' ears flattened, teeth bared. Then David sat down. He didn't approach them, didn't reach out, just sat cross-legged on the floor and started making a low, rhythmic sound. Not quite humming, not quite singing, something in between that the translators couldn't process. The smallest cub moved first, creeping forward with obvious uncertainty. It sniffed David's hand. He didn't move. The cub pressed its massive head against his palm. Within minutes, all 6 cubs had surrounded him. One by one, they settled down, forming a pile with David at the center. The rhythmic sound continued, steady, unchanging, impossibly calming. What is he doing? PRYX whispered. Velshera checked the biometric feeds. The cubs' heart rates were dropping, stress hormones normalizing. Their brain patterns showed deep, restful sleep cycles, something they hadn't achieved in weeks. I don't understand, she said. There's no logical pattern to the sound he's making. No frequency that should induce this response. The monitors can't even classify it properly. David's voice came through the comm, barely above a whisper. It's called a lullaby. Humans have been doing this for thousands of years. But why does it work on them? They're not human. Their neurology is completely different. Because it's not about the sound, David explained, one hand gently stroking the smallest cub's fur. It's about presence, about safety. These are pack predators, right? Social animals. Yes, but they lost their parents, their pack, everything that told them the world was safe. He adjusted slightly as a cub draped across his legs. On Earth, we learned that. Young mammals, doesn't matter the species, they don't just need food and shelter. They need to know someone's watching over them while they're vulnerable. Velshera watched the monitors in disbelief. The cubs were completely relaxed, sleeping deeper than they had since arrival. And David just sat there, maintaining that inexplicable sound, radiating something the instruments couldn't measure. It's not in the data, David said quietly. It's older than data, older than civilization. It's just caring. The smallest cub made a sound, not a whimper this time, but something content. Safe. Velshera updated her report. Human introduced to habitat. Results: immediate positive response. Mechanism: unknown. Recommend continued human presence. What she didn't write, because she had no scientific framework for it, was simpler. Sometimes the most advanced predators in the galaxy just needed someone to tell them it was okay to sleep. And somehow,